Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Ask the Trainer session. And yeah, my name is Jonas Pilz. I'm Master Trainer at Maxon. And today I'm joined not only by Dr. Sassi, by Ellie, but also by Andrew and by Nate, who are going to show you some of the new exciting stuff coming with the RedGiant plugins. And before we start, I want to do some housekeeping. So as always, if you go to the Maxon website and then under news and events, you can find all of the events that we are doing. They are all for free. And all of these events are being recorded. So whenever you missed one of these things, you can go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. I will show you that in a second. But one thing that Simon wanted me to point out is with the next demystifying post-production webinar, we've got a guest, Laura Porret, who designed 60 of the amazing presets for Universe, beautiful presets that Sassi and his companions are going to use to make something look terrible. And yeah, then we also have VFX and Chill tomorrow. And yeah, also the Cinema 4D Beginners Workshop with Ellie and Matt, which is also very exciting. And as I mentioned earlier, if you missed any of these sessions, you can go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, and here you can find the recordings of the sessions that we are doing. Cool. So the last thing before we really start that I want to mention is if you want to get a free t-shirt, you can get one. And all you need to do is in the GoToWebinar interface, there is a handout section, and in there you can find a PDF with the link to the merch store and also a coupon code that you have to use during the checkout. And this will make the t-shirt cost $0. You only have to pay for the shipping. So yeah, that's all I have for the beginning. Make sure you prepare your questions so we can answer them later. But also to get you started with writing questions, I want to introduce Andrew to you. And hello. Andrew is the product manager for VFX Suite. And he wants to show you some cool stuff that we added with our fall release, because as you might have noticed, we had a big release last week, updates to Cinema 4D, to VFX Suite, to Trapcode, to Redshift, and to many other things. So yeah, be prepared.
Yeah. And thanks, Jonas.
I'm going to throw the screen at you. Here you go.
Awesome. Cool. So let me just share my screen.
And don't forget to write down your questions in the question section, as always.
All right, so do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, Bang is the I guess the flagship plugin of VFX Suite version 2 that, like Jonas said, was released last week. It's a fully procedural volumetric muzzle flare generator for After Effects that lets you quickly and easily add muzzle flashes to pretty much any shot, as well as giving you full control over the shape of the flash, the placement of the flash, and pretty much any parameter that you can imagine. And I'm going to be really happy to give you guys a demo right now. Right over here, I've just put the effect over a black solid so that we could start by kind of looking at the way that the flash shape is generated. So like I said, it's fully procedural, and we generate a volumetric particle cloud to represent the shape of the flash that's represented in 3 dimensions. So no matter where I point the gun, it'll render that flash at the proper angle with the proper dimensions. So this little pointing tool here, you'll see a bit more of it later when we start adding flashes to the shots, but it makes it really easy and kind of fun to use the tool because it lets you really get an idea of how to position the flare with the footage, as well as set the size. Now, in terms of the flare itself, you have full control over it. You could change the full shape here with this little histogram. It gives you control over these points that generates the cloud. Of course, you could also increase the full scale of the flash, as well as use some of the presets that we have here. Of course, we have full presets. I'll show that to you guys in a second after we look at some of the controls. This overlay here could also be changed. So we give different types of overlays for different types of firearms. So depending on the type of shot that you want to align it with, that'll help you get the proper alignment. For now, we'll just use the pistol to keep it easy. Also, inside of the flash parameters, we could add pedals. So in certain types of guns, you have a flash suppression that has a series of holes around the barrel, and this ejects the gas in a radius around the barrel. So you get this kind of flower shape effect, which we call pedals. And if I bring the gun over here, you could see that a lot better, and that gives you a really great idea of the full 3D depth of our plugin. Of course, things like the flash color could be changed, so you could get pretty much any color you want. Something was cool in the Die Hard movies we were looking at, the flashes are actually purple, probably because of some of the color correction that was put on the lights. So yeah, in terms of presets, we put together a set of what we thought was all of the most important firearms that you'd be using in your footage, from pistols and handguns, rifles and machine guns, submachine guns, sniper rifles, shotguns, as well as some sci-fi and weirder types of effects. And really using those parameters that we have, you could really get a lot of control out of the shots. To get sort of like an energy weapon look, there's also laser beams. We have a Stormtrooper blaster over here. And one of my favorites is the Merry Christmas cannon. And I'm hoping to find somebody using that very soon. So to add the actual flares, it's kind of fun. So I have some footage over here that Stu, our CCO, shot, I think in his hallway. And she has a submachine gun here, and you see that has those suppressor pedals that we were talking about. And we also set up an automatic light so that we have flashes in the actual scene that we could use to kind of make those muzzle flares look even more realistic. And then over here, all I did was set some markers for myself, so I know where those flashes are happening. So this is just a little bit easier for us. So the way that you apply the effect is really, really simple. You just grab it from the menu here and drop it in. And there you see the overlay of the gun that we were talking about. So right away, the scale is wrong. Oh, and we should choose a preset. She was using a submachine gun. Let's put that on there. I think the scale should be about 220, 216. And then I'll take this void here, align it with the barrel, and this back marker here, kind of align that with her shoulder. And there we have our first shot. To add the keyframe, you just hit this button here and it adds the keyframe for you. So since we're going to be also doing multiple shots, we need to keyframe our position and our aim. And we'll go to the next shot over here. So she's pointing a little bit further down now. I'll just drag that over there, like that. Hit another add keyframe, bang, bang. And another one over here. Let's do our aim. Add keyframe. And let's do one more quickly right now. And there we go. Okay. So I just added 4 flashes to the shot. And you see it's already looking pretty good. But like we said, those flares have pedals, so let's put the pedals in. I think that there's 5 on that gun. And it'll add the pedals to all of the shots. It's really as easy as that. So here's a clip where I just kind of finished what I was just starting, so we don't have to go through all of them. And you see here, That looks pretty great. And something that I wanted to show you all is how to kind of make this look even more realistic. Because you could see like here, all the flashes look kind of the same. They're all randomly generated, but they're all captured basically at the same point in the explosion. And what's cool when you're shooting real bullets, real muzzle flashes, the shutter will close at some random point during that explosion. So we have something called flash age that lets you kind of visualize that. And it also lets you set a different randomness, so you have a little bit more variety in the age of the flashes. The easiest way to understand it is really just to look at this. As I pull this slider back, this is making the flash basically younger in time. As I pull it out, it's getting older and dissipated. I'm going to set this at 40%, which is basically our default value. And if I bring up the flash age random, that will vary that flash age to a greater degree between the flashes, so that I have more likelihood of having different states of flash. And you see this one, it's a bit older. This one here is much younger. This one is kind of where it was before. So it adds a lot more variety and realism to the shots. And if we look at that now, it looks even better. I guess the last thing I'll show you guys, is the fact that this is all composited in HDR. So you could really bring down the exposure here. Oops, sorry. Oops. And it's all composited with the full detail of the flash. So the highlights are not blown out, and you could use it for a full color correction process later on. And that's about it. There's tons of other parameters. Like it would take us literally an hour to go through everything. I'll just give a couple of those. This one here is the interactive light, which I think is really cool. If you don't have a light in your footage that's already there, let me just set this to one. This will let you kind of simulate that. So if I set this up with the footage layer as my layer, and we have the interactive light amount here, you'll see that it'll actually relight the scene around the flash. So if you didn't have that interactive light in your original shot, or if you want to just like kind of meld it together even more, that's where you want to go. It also gives you full control over how that interactive light fills into the shadows, as well as restricts it to any matte that you want. One last thing, we're using our Red Giant optical glow in this plugin, so we get that really sweet highlight roll off that everybody loves. And yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm just going through the questions here, and yeah, Michael asked, is there any sort of heat distortion with Bang?
Oh yeah, we do have a heat blur actually. Let me show you guys that. So if I were to add the heat blur, this creates a heat distortion map that comes in the shot right after the flare. And if I use this control here, show heat blur map, because it's kind of a subtle effect, this will actually show you the displacement that's happening. So let's make the blur amount quite intense. So you can see that. You can see that there's heat blur happening there, and there's also going to be a little trail over here that follows it. It's really hard to see in the compression, and it adds a really subtle effect. But yeah, you get heat blur, and I think it's really awesome. We also let you add sparks too, which is really cool. So you get that like dirty explosion look in your footage for the flares themselves.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Peter was asking, is it running on Fusion on macOS? But I was about to answer the question right now. I think it has been answered. So VFX Suite is for After Effects, right? So After Effects is the host.
Yeah, it's hosted in After Effects and it's available in Mac OS and for Windows. He was asking about if it's available in Fusion.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
good to know.
Okay, so are there any more questions on VFX Suite or Bang? If not, I'm gonna hand it over to Nate.
Thank you, guys.
He's going to show you some cool stuff with Trapcode. Thank you very much, Andrew. That was very cool.
My pleasure.
So, Nate, I'm gonna make you the presenter.
All right.
Here you go.
There we go.
I can see your screen.
Excellent. Just gotta get things out of my way so I can. Boy, this GoToMeeting wants to be right in my way. There we go. Okay, I can see things. You can see things. Everybody's happy. Yeah, thanks. So, Trapcode Suite 17 was just released, and just a brief overview of our areas of focus for this. The big headliner, of course, is that we brought form behaviors into particular. And if you're familiar with Trapcode, form in particular are two similar particle-based products, whereas this is particular here, where your particles are born and they die. As we say, they're emitted. And in form, the particles we called them immortal particles. They were never born nor died. They were just there, and you could push them around with various things like fractal noises and whatnot. But there's long been the desire to be able to have these two skill sets interact in the same 3D space. And so that's what we've brought here. So the way that we've implemented that is here you'll see in the emitter type area under emitter behavior, this is where you normally see continuous, explode from emitter speed, and we've now added these two options, dynamic form and classic form. And classic form is, as it implies, that is your traditional form behavior. But now, since we've added all of these physics simulations into particular, we wanted a way for forms to participate in that, and that's with this dynamic form behavior. So you can see when selecting that, you now get your immortal particles, and by default, they're still in this kind of random scattered pattern that you typically get with particular. But just with this click on a grid, then you can get back to your grid of particles that you'd be used to with form, and you can get your even distribution. You control your particles in X, Y, and Z right here. But so this has really opened up a lot of really cool opportunities. Mixing these two things together has really become more than a sum of the parts. And I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit because I want to show how many of the things that we introduced can all come together into one effect. So skipping ahead, the next big thing that we introduced was we brought some new features into the flocking simulation here. I'm going to reset that. So in Trapcode 16, we introduced flocking, and you can see you enable that, and your particles start to behave based on these parameters, how much they're attracted to each other, separate. And we gave you the ability to set one system to predator. Here, let's go. give that a color. We'll slide you over a bit. Rotate it. So we've got, you know, this particle system. I think maybe I won't get too crazy. I'll just go with an explode. So we get one set of particles that just bursts out from the beginning there. And let's create another system. Set it over here. Again, we'll set that to explode and give you another color so we can distinguish. We got to bump up the lifespan of these guys so that they last the duration of our comp here. And in flocking, we can now set this to prey. So this is so far nothing different. This is what we introduced in Trapcode 16. But the second that we introduced flocking with predator-prey behaviors, people said, well, can I have the predators kill the prey? And we just thought that was a fantastic idea. So our lead engineer, Jeremy, actually, we brought this to him, and he said, well, there are a variety of things that we could have happen when predator and prey come into contact. So instead of just kill prey, we have this slew of options of these results when predator and prey come into contact. So this, you know, initially what brings to mind is you know, hawks chasing pigeons, right? But when you start to think about what you gain from this is you can use this in motion design to some pretty creative ends because you just kind of get these organic behaviors. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to start from a clean slate here. And what we're going to build up is a reveal. So we'll do a text reveal. So I'm just going to set up a text emitter here, and I'm going to set this to dynamic form. And then I'm going to put it on a grid, and let's just do one particle in Z. So there we go. We've got our default Trapcode text here. I think we don't need this to be that dense. So I'm going to take that down to 45. Let's drop our particle size just a little bit. Here we go. I think that looks all right. Maybe bring the edge density down a little bit. And try not to overwhelm things here. All right, so we don't need to do too much more to that other than we're going to go into simulations, and I'm going to enable flocking for this. And, you know, of course, immediately your text just starts flying around like birds. We don't want that in this case. So I'm going to drop any parameters that would motivate the particles to move down to 0. I'm going to set these as a prey particle. And I'm also going to drop this evade down to 0. So there we go. Nice, boring set of text here, not doing anything. Thank you all. Have a good night. No, anyway, so I'm actually going to set the opacity of this down to 0. We don't need to see what's happening with this text. What we're going to do is create a reveal by adding another system here, and we're going to do an emit from parent with this one. And so by default, that grabs the primary as the parent system, which is what we want. We don't want continuous. What we want is the darkest parameter in particulars at parent end of life. We were going to call it at parent death. Thought maybe that was a little too macabre. So anyway, at parent end of life, that means when those parent particles die, then a new particle is emitted. And under particles here, so since we are emitting from a parent system, this means that we are emitting 100 particles for every parent particle. We don't need that. So we're just going to go 1 for 1. So for every parent particle that dies, we get 1 new child particle. I also don't need any velocity for this. I just want a new particle to pop up where the old particle was. And let's see, I'm gonna give it some color just for fun. Something, it'll be all right, something like this. Something along those lines. Okay, not much happening yet. I promise we are getting somewhere interesting. So we have our parent system that has the prey flocking set. So we need a predator. So we're just gonna create another new system here. And I'm okay with it being a point emitter. I think I just wanna go with an explode. And we'll just stick with 100 particles for now. And again, I don't need to do a whole lot with this one. I just wanna go into my flocking here, enable that, set that to predator. And you can see we're getting the behavior there, and it's just going to float around. But what we want to do here is convert prey to predator. And so, of course, that means as soon as these predator particles come into contact with a prey particle, that prey particle becomes a predator and starts attacking other prey. It's like a game of sharks and minnows. So there we go. We're going to convert prey to predator. Let's back this up. And look at that. We're starting to get this text reveal. And we don't even necessarily need to see this predator system. If we don't want to, we can. It can be part of the effect. But otherwise, you just get this really interesting dynamic reveal.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, and our very talented Harry Frank has done this much better than I can in a 10-minute demo. He's added in some of these really great presets here in the text category, where he's doing just this. He's doing the opposite in this one, where he's eroding. So that first system that we set up, you'd leave that visible and just allow it to be devoured by the predator particles. So yeah, there are a lot of possibilities with that. Let's see, there was also in, where did I? Yeah, so this is one I made simulating a virus outbreak, and it's a similar concept where it's these blue particles are being devoured by predators and then revealing the red particles below. So along with the form behaviors and the flocking improvements, so we brought over as much of the form experience as we could into particular, and it. Okay. Yeah, so it's opened up these really interesting things where you can create a sphere form and emit from that using the what previously would have been like the grid emitter controls. So you get your, is this the one? No, I'm just going to show this real quick. This was something that I discovered while just kind of playing around. So let's see, let's do sphere, and let's set you to on a grid. And so like the old grid emitter, you have the sequencing type here. So you can, we default to periodic burst, but you can also go to traverse. And let's see, let's set this to inward. So now you're starting to get this sphere imploding in on itself. Let's maybe get some over life going on. That's not good. Something like that. And then let's just like give this a tail from primary, and we will, let's drop that velocity down so it's just getting a nice tail. And then I like to put a little taper on my tail, so go to this size over life, drop that down, and we probably don't need life to be quite that long. There we go. And then in the color block here, we'll just take this color from parent. So we just, the child particles inherit parent particles. So this type of effect to me lends itself to a lot of possibilities, which I think is cool. We also upgraded our displacement. You'll notice that we did away with the fast physics block and we split it up. We created our motion effects block with the drift and spin, and then have another block for our fields. And we brought over flow and loop from form, so you can have your fractal field flowing through your particles and endlessly looping. We also gave particular the ability to scale and rotate the spherical field on individual axes. And maybe one of my favorite things that we gained from form was Kaleidoscope. And we didn't just bring it straight over, we upgraded it a bit from the way that it was implemented before. Let's just change up what we've got here a bit. We'll use this. Okay, so this is a good starting point. Let's give this a little meander so that we get some sort of like interesting organic behavior here. And then if we take this and we go into Kaleidoscope, now we one of the upgrades we made is that you can now actually mirror on all three axes, whereas previously it was just only vertical and horizontal. So now you can actually mirror on all three axes. So it's a fully 3D mirroring effect now. But this, the Kaleidoscope in particular is like, why hasn't this been here all along? These two things are like best friends. So that is just about it. There's one last thing you might have noticed when I was demoing flocking. There was one feature I kind of skimmed over here, and that's this team drop down. So the concept behind this is you may want to have predator systems that only attack specific prey. So in order to do that, you can assign these team designations. So you can have a predator and prey both on team A, and they won't interact with each other. But a predator from team A will attack a prey from team B. And the reason that we added that feature was because I wanted to make this. Yeah, that's
cool.
that was my Battlestar Galactica. I started to set up a space battle, and I was like, wait a second, I can only have one side shoot at the other, and the other side can't shoot back. This isn't fair. So I just asked our engineer. I was like, hey, is this possible? And he's like, oh, let me think about it. Yeah, okay. He had it done in like 3 days.
Smart.
So
Awesome.
so this is the team effect. So you've got you know, your battle star, the Vipers here. These are prey particles, and as are the Cylon Raiders. Those are both prey systems, and then their weapons fire are predators. So over here, the Vipers and their weapons fire are on Team A, and then the Cylon Raiders and their weapons fire are on Team B, so that the Cylon weapons fire knows to target the Vipers and vice versa.
Can you just play it back again? Hannah was asking. She likes to see it again.
Sure. I'll watch it all day long.
That's great.
And then you've got the explosions emitting at parent end of life as the ships are destroyed.
It's so cool. It's so amazing what you can do with it these days. It's incredible.
Well, and our friend Hashi took the concept and improved on it, and he did his Alien Invaders version. Space
That's
Invaders.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's also great.
Yeah, guys, that's amazing.
So that's my demo.
You got to combine that with Bang for
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
I also saw people using Bang to do like the thrust from a spaceship, actually. So you could have used
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been for some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it can be used in a variety of ways. That's the cool thing about it.
Well, and this is the part that I love right after the release, seeing these tools get into artists' hands. Because we've been sitting with a team of engineers and designers for months putting this together. But like the real magic happens when our users start getting their hands on it and playing with it.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to see what you all do.
We all are. Well, thank you, Nate.
Yeah, thank you.
I think, let me just scan the questions again, but I think is there any form of collision detection available with Particula, especially from hitting 3D geometry or 2D, if that's possible? I remember that there was some collision detection.
Yeah, well, that would be in the bounce physics, which, yeah. So you can, if you'd like me to demo that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Just got to come out here and create let's call this floor. We got to make that a 3D layer. We'll just rotate that, drop that down, and then we can go right back into the designer here. Just have to create the floor out there. There's one thought I have is adding a default floor into the bounce physics, so you don't have to go out and create one. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go into environment and we'll get some gravity. So we're falling, and then go into our simulations and enable bounce, and then we just select that floor layer that I created. So we're getting some bounce there. And then you have these options in collision event where you can bounce, slide, stick, or kill. So as soon as we hit that layer, then our particles are dying, and then we can have a secondary system that emits from the parent system. And there's actually a couple of ways you could do that, because you can emit on parent bounce, or you can emit parent end of life. So, and let's just option click on that plus sign, and it gives me a default block there, because I don't want to inherit the physics from that. Nope. Maybe I did. So that's how you get collision events. We don't have that working with 3D models, although that's certainly an idea that has been tossed around. I hope that answered the question.
I was muted. I actually wanted to to ask a question from Randy. Is there any? Well, no, that's not the one. The other one was if you can have multiple collisions or multiple colliders.
Yes,
in there.
you can. We allow up to 3 bounce layers per system.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, great. I think we covered all the questions regarding particular. That was a great demo, Nate.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. People really enjoyed it.
Oh, my
They
pleasure.
especially love the spaceship stuff.
That was a special request from Michael Solapsky. So I saw you out there, Michael. You're welcome.
That's great. Cool. So I'm gonna grab the screen back here and answer another question that was related to Cinema 4D. First, let me switch to Cinema 4D here in the background, and then I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And now you should see my screen. Can you see it? Great.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so the question was one regarding the global pins asset. So if you noticed, maybe you didn't, but if you did notice that, I can tell you that one of the cool things about the new release of Cinema 4D R25 is that you can now use those assets, capsules that you create or that you can create using the C node system in the object manager. And so there was one specific question about an asset that is called global pins. So with R25, we integrated support for CSV data. So we can now import CSV files and do stuff with this data. And there's one asset called global pins that allows you to import a list with names of places. This can be cities, airports, racetracks, lighthouses, whatever you want, and have the longitude, latitude in there, and the magnitude, and a name, and if you also want to, a color. So let me show you what this looks like. I've got this one here prepared. This is the little data sheet that I prepared for testing. So I have one that has a city, latitude, longitude, and magnitude in there. And here you can see these are like GPS data. We've got those few cities here. And I imported them here into the global pins asset. And then I defined the name for the for all of these columns. So these have to match. If I go back here, you can see that's city, lat, long, mag. And here we also have city, lat, long, and mag. And color is one that is missing in my sheet, but you can also define a color. So once you imported that and set those column names correct, then it should appear like this, that you have these pins here in the places that well, where they would be in real life. Like here, we also have Los Angeles and New York and so on. And so what you can do first is here on the globe, you can draw the globe or not. You can define the radius. You can also create a material, and this is what I did here. For those of you who never played with the new interface, you cannot see the material manager here. It is now under this button. We now have these 4 hot corners around the viewport, and the top right hand corner opens up the material manager. The top left will open up the asset browser, and here you can see that I've got the earth map from the asset browser, shipping with Cinema 4D, or you can download it for free and use it for your projects. Then in the bottom left, we've got the timeline, and in the bottom right, we've got the coordinate manager. So yeah, I just used this this earth map here in a material, and yeah, colorized this map using a colorizer. And the cool thing is the sphere by default can use this map, and without any adjusting of the UV offsets and so on, it will just be in the right place. So that's cool. And yeah, then further down in the global pins asset, we have the pin settings, where you can set a height for the pins. So let's go with 1000. Then they are much bigger. And we can also draw the labels or not, or adjust the size of them and the extrude depth and so on. And then there's one thing that is called flight path. And one thing that I noticed is if you have a list of many cities in there, for example, then the thing is that focused only is activated. And this means by default, it will, as far as I understood, it will only use or will only show those pins that are connected using the flight paths, or just the first one in the list. So if you just want to see all of the pins, just uncheck the focused only. And then you can insert a flight path here. And the flight path is reading the label name. In this case, it's the city name. So if I want a flight path from, let's say, New York to Berlin, I can just type in New York and then comma Berlin, and then let's go on. This Berlin is just a stopover, and then we want to fly to Sydney. All right, and now you can see that we now have this flight path, and let's increase the radius so we can see it better. You can also adjust the material and also the altitude here. Let's bring this up to 500. So now you can see the flight path better. We are now flying from New York to Beijing. That was a mistake. It's because of the comma. Yeah, it was the space in between. So now you are not allowed to have spaces in between here. So now it's flying from New York to Berlin, and then all the way down to Sydney. And you can animate that. So you can have an animation here, as you can see if you scrub the flight path animation parameter here, you can see that this flight path is just created along the path. And of course, you can create another flight path. Those are names of airports here. So let's fly from Rome to Moscow, and then we will have a second flight path here from Rome to Moscow. So that's a pretty cool thing. And as I said, the coolest thing about this this whole integration is that you can also use it in the object manager of classic Cinema 4D. So that's really awesome. And let me just show another thing that is related to using those assets or capsules in the object manager. I don't have a very beautiful example for that. But if I create a new object and project, and I want to do this using the new tab bar up here, so now you can use these tabs to create new projects. And simply get rid of projects here, add new projects, you can duplicate projects and so on. And the same you have here for the layout. So you can quickly switch between the layouts and everything is fast and so on. So here we are. And I just want to create, well, let's say we use a sphere and we set it to icosahedron. And let's have a look at the topology here. So what I just did was I pressed NB, which will bring up the Gouraud shading with lines. So what we can do now is, for example, we open up the asset browser and we go to operators. And here we have selection or geometry selection modifiers, geometry generators, geometry modifiers, and you can use them, although they are node assets, you can use them here to do some procedural modeling. Let me first switch the asset browser to list view and make everything a little bit smaller so we can see everything. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to select something. Let's say I want to select the top polygons here. So I can use the select facing asset here and just drag and drop it onto the sphere. And I want to select the top polygons. So I set it to +y. And you see we've got a tolerance with an angle. And now nothing is happening. So internally it's selecting something, but in order to see it, we need to add some geometry modifier. And I'm gonna add an inset first, like so. So now you can see that those top polygons have been inset. And if I bring up the tolerance, you can see that we can procedurally grow this selection. And to make it even more visible, I can add an extrude beneath it. So now you can see it like this. And yeah, so when I now adjust this tolerance parameter here, we can just grow the selection. There are many things that you can do with selections. You can also create a random selection instead, like so. You can also combine selections using those. Let me do that. So here we have a select node or select capsule, and it has this selection string in here. So what we can do now, we can create a selection, a stored selection for this one, for example. So let's do that. We store the selection and we just place it below the select facing, so it's executed from top to bottom. And we want to create a polygon selection, and we name it, this is the, well, let's say it's Y, and the selection string is default. So default will always use either the default selection, which is all, or the active selection. And now we have Y in here. And so we stored this selection. This selection has been stored here. And now we've got a selection tag. And after that, I'm creating the random selection. And in here, we can now say, okay, we want the default selection and maybe subtract, let's say, the select facing from this. So what we need to do is we need to bring in our Y selection here. And if you want to reference a selection that you created before, you have to use those, what are they called actually? I don't know the English word for them. Help me.
What's that, like the quotation?
Yeah, the quotation marks, exactly. So now we've got a combined selection here, and we've got a random selection, but you can see that we subtracted the Y from this, and now we can still make this bigger or smaller here. So there's a lot of powerful stuff that we can do using these. And just as a spoiler, in the last Demystifying Monday webinar in October, I will play around with these to create some meaningful selections and use them in MoGraph to clone stuff on other stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, let me scan through a few more of the questions. Or do we have any questions that
So I was just having a look. There were a couple of questions when you were showing the global pins and stuff like that. I saw Sean had a question. Can the same kind of thing be used for a text object and have essentially CSV-driven text that gets extruded?
Yes. Yes, that's possible. Well, that's the whole point about the integration of the CSV import, that you can now create assets driven by those data sheets. So if you need to create like 1,000 graphics for some broadcast show, then you can do that just by using a CSV file. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
Cool. And Logan was wondering if what you were just showing there with capsules is a tech preview or is it now usable?
Well, that's a tricky question. So it is definitely exciting to play with it, and those assets or capsules that we are providing here, they can be used definitely, but you always need to know that our C-Node system is still in active development. So it is possible that things might change, that things might break. However, if you want to use it for procedural modeling stuff, like the stuff that I do and that I just did, and let's say I want this object as a static object now, but modeling it with the classic modeling techniques would have brought me there as fast as the procedural approach did, then I can just do this. And then I go to right click and current state to object. Let me see. Yeah. Here we go. And now we have this object. So you can use it for certain tasks. For now, well, I would be a little bit careful to use it like in bigger production. So within the R25 cycle, you're definitely safe. But as I said, it's in active development.
One thing that came up in the chat, Randy was asking about the old version of Bang that used to be on AE scripts, and it's good thing to mention actually, because this was a plugin that we acquired. It used to be on AE scripts, but we worked closely with Christian, who was the original developer, to kind of bring it to the level it's at now. So we added the full HDR, we added a lot of the UI upgrades, but we're also working with Christian at Maxon now. He's actually part of the team, so we're going to do other awesome stuff with him, and we're going to also be developing Bang to the next level.
That is great. So I'm just having a look at the time, and we're almost at the top of the hour. So I think it might be a good idea to wrap up here, unless we have one short question that I can quickly answer. Or
maybe I can add to your caution with the production ready. Whatever you do, you could export it as Alembic, and then you have it stable. And that would be my suggestion for everyone who needs it now. And I saw there was some excitement in the chat. Yes, it's wonderful.
That's an awesome point. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, definitely. So caching it out using Alembic will definitely make it stable. Yeah, cool. So let me switch back to my browser and let me again make you aware of a few things that we do. As I told you in the beginning, we have more free webinars coming up, like tomorrow VFX and Chill, and the Demystifying Post-Production series every Monday, yeah, with a guest speaker on Monday. And Laura Porat. Again, I mentioned it in the beginning, she created 60 of the awesome and beautiful universe presets, and Sassy and the others are going to use them to make things look terrible. Yeah, then again, we have the hands-on session C4D Beginners Workshop with Ellie and Matt, and a few other things coming up as well. In case you missed something, for example, the beginning of this one, you can go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, and in a few hours, it will be available there to rewatch. And yeah, you can also rewatch all of the sessions that you missed or that you want to watch again. And of course, we want to give away free t-shirts. So if you want a t-shirt, you can order it from the merch store. Please go to the handout section here in the GoToWebinar interface. There is a PDF in there. Once you downloaded it, it has the link in it to the merch store here and the coupon code. And if you use that coupon code during checkout, you won't be charged for the t-shirt. You just have to pay for the shipping. And that's pretty much today's Ask the Trainer session. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Ellie. Thanks, Sassy, for making this session so great.
Thanks for having me.
Cool, everyone. So
great presentation, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
So see you next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.